A new Senate report links Glaxo's diabetes drug Avandia with an increased risk of heart attack, and it's critical of the FDA. The report says the company allegedly knew about the risks several years ago, but pressed doctors to retract their findings. For more on this story, we're joined by Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He is a resident fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and a partner at the healthcare investment firm Arcota Capital. Dr. Gottlieb was formerly a deputy commissioner at the FDA, as well as a consultant for GSK, GlaxoSmithKline. Dr. Gottlieb, let me ask you this question. How big a deal is this? Because it sounds big, but we need your perspective.
Right. Well, there's really no new scientific information that's accrued as a result of this report. This is really, I think, a policy document on the part of some in the Senate to try to get certain changes made in the structure of FDA. There's nothing new about the drug per se in this report. What they want to see happen is they want to see the Drug Safety Office split off from the new drug division inside the FDA, and this report is going to create some momentum to try to get that change implemented.
Well, what do you think about that idea? Is that the right way to go? And if so, is this the right way to do it?
Well, it's premised on the idea that the people who are in charge of approving drugs are too conflicted and can't be responsible for monitoring the safety of drugs. I think that's wrong. The people who approve the drugs usually have the clinical expertise to really understand the risk-benefit of a new drug. The people in the Drug Safety Office are, by and large, epidemiologists who just look at post-market information. They're not clinical experts in the fields in which the drugs are being used. So I think they have a more narrow perspective. So I think it's very important that the new drug divisions be involved in looking at the drugs after they're approved. The idea here is that you have to create a separate agency just charged with looking at drug safety, so they have independent authority to pull drugs off the market. People in the new drug divisions haven't been shy about pulling drugs off the market in the past.
Dr. Gottlieb, you were at the FDA during a period when it was, or at least the administration was criticized for politicizing the agency. Do you think that this effort may go some way towards depoliticizing the FDA if, in fact, it's created, notwithstanding your concerns?
Well, I think the agency's always been accused of various things over the course of time. It's an agency that's at the nexus of a lot of things I think that people have a lot of interest in, a lot of concerns around. I don't think this report's going to change much, and I don't think splitting off the Drug Safety Office is going to change much. All it's going to do probably is just slow down the drug approval process. So
let's get back to this Avandia story. I mean, what happens next? What's the timeline? What's the next step?
Well, FDA will hold a new advisory committee to look at this drug, and it's probably going to be some kind of internal look at the process that they went about here. You know, the last time they looked at this, they had an external advisory committee that looked at it. The advisory committee voted 22-1 to keep the drug on the market. I suspect the advisory committee will come out the same place again because there's no new scientific information here. But the more times you look at it, the more likely that they're going to take stronger action.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment. The more times you look at it, you're familiar with the scientific evidence here. Based on what you know, would you raise the same kinds of questions that Senators Grassley and Baucus are raising? Why is this drug still on the market?
Well, look, the questions that they raised around the cardiovascular safety of this drug, it's already in the drug label. It was put in the drug label back in around 2008. So the drug, it's known that the drug might have an increased cardiovascular risk relative to other drugs on the market. So again, there's nothing new. We didn't learn anything new. All this report really does is surface some emails that they got internally from GSK and raises some broader policy questions around the structure of the FDA, whether it's fundamentally sound.
Do you think it's okay, though, provided the drug has that labeling, for it to be available despite the evidence that it increases the risk of heart attack quite considerably?
Well, it's a question whether it increases the risk of heart attack. These aren't prospective trials. They're backward-looking trials. It was called a meta-analysis. So there's still some doubt, and there's a trial underway to look specifically at that drug safety concern. But you know, an advisory committee of experts, and I'm not expert in this field, looked at this question and felt that it was important to have this drug on the market. The bottom line is most doctors have started to use other drugs in lieu of this drug. I suspect a lot of the patients who are still on this drug are people who have either been on it for a very long time and are stable on it, or people who tried the other drug, it didn't work for them, so they switched to this one.
Dr. Gottlieb, I heard you say you're not an expert, but are people taking the drug safe, in your opinion?
Certainly the FDA has made the judgment that this drug is safe to be on the market for people with diabetes, and I would defer to their judgment.
All right, okay. Dr. Gottlieb, thank you very much. Dr. Scott Gottlieb with the American Enterprise Institute, former deputy commissioner with the FDA.